got us all going, didn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Hey, whenever you're ready.
My name's Avery Wisdom, and I'm from Webbers Falls, Oklahoma, and I graduated from Gore High School. I'm a freshman here at Connors, and I'm on the President's Leadership class and the Cattle Show team. My major is animal science with a it's agriculture with a double emphasis in animal science and pre-vet.
Okay, we used to call that animal husbandry back in the day. So you got out of high school when, Avery?
I just graduated this last
Just
May.
graduated.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good start. Yeah. I'm Jess Epple. I'm an old student of Connors, and I graduated from high school at Warner in 1954. In the fall of '54, I enrolled here, somewhat begrudgingly, because I had decided I was going to be a truck driver. And Dad talked me into trying actually a year at Connors. He said it was all right to be an educated truck driver. Yeah. So that's when I got my start, was in 1954.
Okay. What did you major in whenever you
I
did?
started out pre-med, but many of the courses, as you're going to find out, you have to have in your animal science or agronomy, many of the courses that you have to have for pre-med, you have to have.
Yeah.
So you got the general chemistry and the organic chemistry and the botany and the entomology and all of that, comes together in both areas. So, but it's what the direction they taught me into to going.
Okay, well, what were some of your best memories or experiences at Connors?
My best memories here.
Yes.
Yeah, I think probably was studying the bacteria in a bacteriology class. I had no clue what a Bacillus aureus was, or some of these more common bacteria that can make you pretty sick, and to see them under a microscope. And our microscopes they were state of the art pretty much back then, but compared to now, there wasn't much comparison. But back then, when you wanted to see real detail on maybe a harder to look at bacteria, you had to do the right staining on them. And it seemed like there was a gram negative and a gram positive, and you colored them, so that it would highlight them. And I think that was probably a discovery that stood out in my memory the most. And I had a teacher that was I think it was her first year to teach college level. She had just got her master's and had some work on her doctorate. And she must have been French, because her last name was Delzell. I remember Marilyn Delzell. And she was just a whiz at, getting these points across. And so science grabbed me pretty much at that point, and took everything that was offered that I had time to take.
Okay, what did you end up doing? Did you go into a field in science? Or?
Yes, I did. First I went to the U.S. Forest Service in Idaho to work my summers. So I got a dose of forestry. We planted trees. We done a lot of the grunt work that a college kid would expect to do, you know. And then we had forest fires. Why we were invited to participate in those forest fires, so to speak. You had no choice. But then when I graduated, I wanted to work for the Forest Service. That's what I knew. And Idaho was the northern part of Idaho up near Canada was a beautiful place to work. And so, but when I approached them to go full time, why, they didn't have the budget for it. And I knew I couldn't wait too long, so I went to work for the U.S. Department of Agriculture Soil Conservation Service. Today it's called the Natural Resources Conservation Service. They changed the name a few years ago. And so I had all the hours to qualify to go into training as a soil scientist. So they had an opening in New Mexico, and so my wife and I moved to Lordsburg, New Mexico. And if you ever have watched any Westerns on television, you probably heard about the old outlaws that said, well, we're going to meet up at Lord's or Lordsburg, you know, and do such and such. It was a wide open town, and it tamed down time we got there, of course. But it was right next to the old Mexico border in Arizona. That's where it's located. And I had actually had a choice to get my training as a soil scientist. I had a choice to go to Albuquerque and somewhere else, and Lordsburg. And I had no knowledge of desert-type soils, and so I didn't want to go somewhere that I had some knowledge, you know, or had already been there. And I asked to go to Lordsburg. And Lordsburg was, it was my first training under what I'd call master soil scientists, older people that had been doing it for quite a while in soil classifiers. And while I was there, I worked on Hidalgo County soil survey, and this is what they look like when they're finished and published. Now today, this can be pulled up on the internet very handily, and it works, you know, if you got a big tablet, it works a lot better, or a bigger screen. But when we were doing it, they come out with publication. And so this is where I started, was Hidalgo County. So I could not take much credit because I was being trained on Hidalgo County. I was getting training. I wasn't by myself at any time. But I got to say, the desert soils aren't what most people that have no experience with the desert, they're not what they expect.
But
they're the best.
In Oklahoma.
Just add water, and you got the best soils in the world many times, many cases. There are some cases where desert soils are, some of the series aren't really worth much except pasture and limited pasture. But that was where I was trained, was Hidalgo County, Lordsburg, next to Arizona and next to Old Mexico. There's 3 soil surveys that's roughly about this size that I had direct contact with in Missouri that are not here because of the weight issue. But these are not something that one person does. There may have been a dozen people worked on this particular one in San Miguel County. In fact, I think there was more than a dozen people, because there would be young fellows moved in to train, and they would do, you know, several thousand acres before they'd consider that they were trained enough to take the next step to maybe a more progressive, more complicated county, and but this is what I started as a soil scientist. In classifying, I worked myself up to where I was licensed as a classifier, a soil classifier, and that's when things go into the book, the soils book as a matter of fact, something that you can depend on, and I'm proud of the work I'd done as a soil scientist, but I'm also glad that I went ahead and my supervisor actually didn't ask me. He kind of told me that he was putting me into management courses, and by the way, you'll show up at such and such a place at such and such a time to start your first studying. And I think I went to about 4 different places. I know I got sent to Chicago a time or two, and Stephenville, Texas was a pretty well-known place where people were trained, and that's where we had our map center, where the aerial photographs that show up back here, all of them had their start at Stephenville, Texas. I think it was cartology. I always mispronounce it, cartology, study of the reading and the interpretation of aerial photographs. And that's what we put our delineation lines on and outlined which soils were separated from other soils. But this was pretty much right here was the first 5 or 6 years in New Mexico. And then I spent the rest of my time in Missouri and a year or so as a soil scientist, and they needed people to manage field offices, and I was pretty good at managing several field offices at one time, and so that's what they graduated me into, so to speak, was a field office manager. But I spent probably pretty much near 40 years with the Soil Conservation Service before I retired. And then when I retired from them, I moved back. We had land that adjoined Dad's land. We'd been buying land along, and then we bought about half of his land, and I went into raising cattle. Really went to work then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's physical work. But they had a opening in Muskogee at the office, the Soil Conservation Service office there, and it was working for the state, the conservation district. A little complicated. You can have a state employee in a federal office that works for the district, but also helps for the Soil Conservation Service people. And so they had an opening there, and it was part-time, like about 3 days a week on average.
Okay.
And I asked them what was expected of you. They told me the job description, and they said, pretty much, some of the job description you'll need to make it yourself, because we've been without an individual here for a couple of years, and things have not got done that probably should have been done, and so I took the job and worked for them. I think it was 15 or 16 years. I just planned on working about 3 years. And it was primarily to to kind of get acquainted and oriented in Muskogee County, because I hadn't lived here, for years. I could tell you about New Mexico counties. I could tell you about some Missouri counties. Didn't know much about Muskogee County. So I thought, well, this will kind of introduce me to some of the people and some of the areas that I don't know by just working 2 or 3 days a week, and it did. But I didn't plan on working but about 3 years, and I ended up, I think, like I say, 15, 16 years. I'm retired from them. So I retired from the federal government with 35 years, I guess, of service, and then so many years with the state. So I'm a double dipper. We almost always had a college or university where I was at. It just worked out that way, that we cooperated together in so many different ways. I know that some of the geology classes, they wanted us to come in and talk about how soil is made, how the rocks become soil, essentially. And so I put together a slideshow so that I didn't have to reinvent the wheel every time they gave me a call, and I didn't have time to prepare. I had my slide show back then. That you're not probably familiar with slides, so we put together a couple of different slide programs that would work when they called us. And by the same token, we were able to audit. Some of their classes that I wanted to find more about, get more information on, and so usually the guy that was the professor that was in charge of the geology department he'd spend a day or two with us out in the field to see what we were doing and how we were doing it, and then we would kind of swap off and go into his classroom and give our lecture.
Well, that's really awesome. Was there a certain teacher or professor from Connors that made a really big impact in your life?
Yes. Thanks for asking that question. Enos Van, probably. There were Marilyn Dalzell, no doubt, made the biggest impression on me because I'd try to take every class she offered. But Enos Van, he taught animal science. Animal husbandry,
I'm in that class
as we
right
called
now.
it then. And animal science sounds better. And judging, I never was very good at judging, just to be quite frank with you. I just couldn't, for some reason, I just couldn't get it down to where I could make really high scores when it comes to judging. But it's some kind of mental block, I guess. But Enos Van taught. He was a heck of a good teacher, and you could go to him anytime you were not certain about something, and he didn't try to push you out because he was just too busy with something else. He always took time for you. Enos Van was. And he was not the exception. There was just a lot of teachers here that, were like Enos Van. But Mr. Van had a agricultural economics class that I took. I remember he assigned each one of his students an area he wanted us to talk about. We had a choice. We could get up in front of the class and we could explain and talk about what he assigned us, or we could find an expert to come in and talk in our place. Well, I knew everybody down at the bank in First National Bank then through my dad, and had a relative that was first, I think he was first or second vice president then, and I went straight to him. No, he wasn't gonna. It was FDIC, Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, that protects your money. If I'm right, now over $100,000, $125,000. Anyhow, whatever. The FDIC was my assignment. So Mr. Van, I think he expected that I was going to have to study and give the talk myself, but I kept asking at the bank till finally a fellow by the name of Ora, middle name, middle initial, I think it was W, Ora W. Lamb, and he is either the president or right in line to be president. And so, I'll come down and talk about FDIC. Well, great, And I noticed when he got done with his talk, well, heck, I left the class pretty quick. I had to go cultivate a crop or something up probably over in McIntosh County, and I had to get out of there. And next thing I knew, Mr. Van had not retired, he had quit. He had resigned to Connors and went to work for First National Bank Agriculture Department. Yeah, he got him a job. And so he was one that take time with you and not act like it was a burden on him.
So it's nice. I appreciate my professors like that. It's always.
But Connors was known for, when I was, and I would assume probably still is, had that attitude that we'll take time. We that's why we're here. This is part of our job. We'll.
Yeah, that definitely drew me to Connors, knowing I wanted to do like pre-vet because those classes are difficult. So part of the reason I chose Connors is because I knew they could help me more than going to a big school right away. But
pre-vet, huh?
Yeah, I want to go to OSU and go to their vet school.
Okay, good for you. Good for you. Yeah, you can get an awful good base here. You can get it seemed like when I was here, you could get some of your organic chemistry out of the way. Can you still get your, 10 hours you had to have? I think I had to have 10 hours of organic chemistry. Seemed like I got, I got it panhandled. Beg your pardon on that. I don't think they offered the organic chemistry here at Connors. Don't think they did.
I'm not sure if they do or not. I gotta go work on my degree plan this week. But are there any words of wisdom you want to pass along or any advice?
Sure. Just never give up. They're sure that they want to get a degree or get more studying in a subject, is to not to give up. But quitters quit, and it's too easy to do. You got to keep on plugging along and get your goals and objectives set, and then work towards them. Don't quit.
Yeah, that's really good.
All right, let's close it out.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming out today and letting us interview you. It was a really good time. It'll be really good for our museum.
And my pleasure. What are your dreams when you get your degree? What are you going to work at?
I want to go to vet school and be a vet, and then I want to come back to this general area, just like rural Oklahoma.
Yeah, you mentioned veterinary school.
Yeah, and I want to run a mixed clinic, so I don't want to specialize in small or big animals. I want to do both. So.
That's tough.
Yeah, it's tough, but I think I can do it.